Hello? Your Health is Calling, where holistic health meets practical solutions for your well being. With your host, speaker, New York Times bestselling author, Sue Kostyk, a seasoned holistic health practitioner and longevity coach. Join Sue each week to embark on a journey to uncover the root causes of your health concerns. Through a personalized approach, learn how to decode the messages your body is sending and craft natural protocols to address them. Call in live at 888-994-4995 Studio A.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to Your Health is Calling. I'm Sue Kostyk. I am an integrative health practitioner, and integrative health is basically root cause. We dive super deep into why you're having the symptoms you have and finding that root cause so that ultimately the symptoms go away and never come back because we've gotten to that root cause. We're not just putting a Band-Aid to make you feel a little bit better through the symptoms. We're actually peeling the onion through different modalities, through traditional Chinese medicine, through ancient Ayurvedic medicine, and nutrition. It's all kind of wrapped up into one, and we find the root cause of what's ailing you. So if you've been on me with this journey, we've gone through probably, we're probably close to 35 weeks of diving into our health, our mindfulness, why we do the things we do. We've gone through the de-stress protocol, and you can find all of these on the Reinvented Life Network on YouTube and go back and rewatch them. So today, we're going to dive into why your mindset matters. And I could speak all day long on different health issues and why we're, getting into the disease that we are getting into. But when you start to go through a journey, and whether it's a health journey or it's a reinvented life journey or a financial journey, whatever it might be, if you don't have the mindset and the belief in yourself that this can actually happen, then you may as well not even try. And I know that sounds very harsh, but our mind is such a powerful tool. And I'm going to bring on in a few minutes a very dear friend and mentor. She's actually the founder of the Reinvented Life Network. And she coaches people on reinventing their life and how the steps to take, because if you're anything like me, I actually found my passion in my 50s and started really walking in my true purpose in my 60s after almost 40 years of corporate America life and walking into this entrepreneurship. And so I want to bring Pamela Chanel David on, and we're going to talk about mindset and why it is so important to our success. And she's actually helped me incredibly with this. So I know she's going to be able to help you as well. So let's bring Pamela on and welcome her to Hello, Your Health is Calling.
Oh,
Welcome.
it's great to be on with you this morning.
Yes, we are going to have some fun. And so part of the de-stress protocol, which I did, there's like 9 steps, and it took me probably about 18 weeks to go through them. But part of the de-stress protocol, the very last S, is success mindset. And so I took some notes, and I want to just kind of have a free-flowing conversation with you, because not only do you coach people on this, but you also have had to incorporate this into your own life recently. And, one of the first things that I notice is that people are always trying to change, to transform in some outwardly manner. It's usually we're unhappy with something outwardly. It's either our health, our weight, our hair, our face. Their transformation is endless, right? And a lot of times people step into this and they transform something on the outward, but yet when it's all said and done, they're still not happy. and they still have those same limiting beliefs, even though they've changed something outwardly. They still have the limiting beliefs that are keeping them in that same struggle. And you know, it's really not possible. I'm reading a quote from Dr. Stephen Cabral, and it's really not possible to overcome many things based on issues without figuring out the mental roadblocks first. So I'm going to open up with that because I know you do a lot of work around mental roadblocks. Help me with a few. So let's kind of have a chat about that. What do you think is one of the biggest reasons why we allow our minds to stop us?
Well, what I would say and start with is the outside, whatever that may be, whether it's a physical outside, mental, emotional, financial, I mean, spiritual, whatever the outside that you're looking at is always reflective of the inside.
Hmm.
So people can presume that they can just do the things.
Hmm.
And that's the first step that I address with everyone is it's not about the doing, but it's about the being. And so I would start with again, we always use the quote, we're not human doings. We're human beings. And how is it that we're being is reflective on the insides and what we are willing, and this is the key to start, what we are willing to acknowledge. We can all day long come up with a laundry list about what we're loving about our life, what we want to shift in our life, what we want to transform in my world is what we want to reinvent. We can come up with those lists all day long. But until we are really willing and have the desire to shift the being or how we're being and how we are authentically showing up and be real with that, it makes it very difficult to start to embrace the change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very powerful. And I love how you always say we're human beings, not human doings. And the brain and the mind are such powerful tools in all of this. And I'm going to read a couple of steps that are in the last S in the acronym De-Stress Protocol. And I want to just kind of go through these and see maybe how you prioritize these when you either personally or working with someone on this actual topic. So, Dr. Stephen Cabral, he's the author of The Rain Barrel Effect. He's my mentor, the doctor I certified under. And his number one thing is purpose. And he talks a lot about your purpose in anything that you do. What is the purpose behind it? And then he follows that up with unrealistic expectations. And I find that really interesting that those two that follows the purpose. And let's talk. I know I'm not following the script at all of what I was gonna do, but let's just kind of free flow it here. But so let's talk a little bit about what happens when you become so clear on your purpose, but how your unrealistic expectations can completely blow that away.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Well,
know
it
I've done that to
starts with
myself.
what, yeah, and it starts with what we talked about at the beginning of the year. And anyone that knows me and has worked with me knows I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions because I think they set one up for, again, an expectation of what should happen rather than be reflective of the shifts that one is going through at all times. So we are not the same beings that we were a week ago, a month ago, or a year ago, right? And so if you have an expectation, it is based on a static period of time.
Mhm.
And what's beautiful, and I love what you opened up with from Dr. Cabral, is purpose is an internal mechanism. Purpose is you asking yourself a question and then getting very real with yourself, very authentic with yourself first. Is what drives you? What do you have the desire for? What is the contribution you want to make? What is it that feeds your soul? And it
Mhm.
always goes back to feeding your soul. And when you get into following that up with an expectation or an unrealistic expectation, those are external mechanisms. And so the two can't go together.
Right.
When you ask the question, when you are in your purpose, and the other way to describe that is when you are in the state, and being is a state of being. When you are in the state of knowing without a shadow of a doubt what your purpose is, where you want to be, and know that that can flow with
Mhm.
as the evolution takes place with your being, there becomes no question, and you can't have unrealistic expectations because whatever you're being is flowing and aligning with that. So if it's anything other than that, you're mechanically trying to work to create something that isn't flowing naturally. And I always give the example of, you know, water running down in a stream, say on a mountain, right?
Mhm.
And you can see the movement of that water. You can feel the movement of that water. You cannot feel the movement of the boulders that the water
Right.
needs to go around.
Yeah.
The
That's great.
boulders are the expectations.
Yes. And there's also something that's come up, and I've been reading a lot about this. It's a cultural mental prison. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that so interesting, and it really has a lot to do with what we're talking about in, not in being human doings, because culturally we've been taught that.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
love the term, the cultural mental prison, because we do in our minds just kind of get imprisoned with all of the stuff that's thrown at us. And I spent 30 plus years in corporate America. You spent decades in corporate America. And and I know I'm talking a lot about mental stuff, but it does pertain to health. It's like
Mm-hmm.
people, they become defined. And this mental prison, we they could become defined by their financial situation, by their health situation. We become defined by our disease. And it's not, it's that prison that we have to break out of, and get rid of all these limiting beliefs that are keeping us locked in that prison. And I talk to so many people who are trying to get healthy and like, well, I have this disease and my body's messing up. And it's like, well, that's not going to get you healthy with that mindset. It's like, how do we break out of that mental prison that really culturally we've, our whole lives for most people are we, it's kind of like the prison door that's not locked.
Yeah.
You know, we can unlock
So
it anytime.
yeah, so what you're speaking to is a conditioning that takes place, and it's a cultural conditioning, and it starts, almost from birth, right? We don't have these conditions as we come into the world in human form, but they're
Mm-hmm.
quickly developed based on the environments of where we are and what it takes to survive and what we're learning consciously and subconsciously. And we're talking about a conditioning.
Right.
So, the way to really do this, to create a mindset of transformation, a mindset of change, a mindset of, again, I go back to the word reinventing oneself, is it requires the simplicity of knowing that there has been a conditioning that's taken place, whether it's recognized or not, and then simplifying it by actually just accepting the notion that to make a shift, we are not abandoning ourselves. And this is the number one issue that people have. Again, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, if one has become a certain way or reliant on a certain way of being, and they go to make this shift, there's an automatic, we're abandoning ourselves. And that is what keeps people from creating any sustainable change. And
Yes.
so if we accept that notion, it's a simplicity of, and what I coach people on is how to create sustainable change through a system, a formula, if you will, of starting with that knowing, coming up with, and it can be very minute shifts. It doesn't have to be major things. It doesn't have to be, losing X amount of weight or relocating across the country, or it can start with something very small. But it starts with the accepting of, we are not abandoning ourselves. We are actually up leveling ourselves and up leveling our frequency. And so the simplicity of it is, what do you want to create in life, and how can we most simply get there? Because when things get too complicated, when people feel like they have to look at a rule book and figure out how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
it's bottom line just not going to happen. So what I love is when we can add levity to it, when we can add joy to it, when we can infuse love into it. And no matter how much chaos and how much craziness is, going on in one's world, when we just come to the simplicity of, we've been conditioned to do things a certain way, and now we want to shift to be. Again, going from that do to that be, and know that we are up leveling, that we are actually providing a growth environment to ourselves. It's that easy.
And I agree. We make it so difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, one of the steps that Dr. Cabral does suggest is have fun. When you are trying to
Absolutely.
incorporate change into your life, accept the seasons. Maybe look at an opportunity, not an obstacle. In a previous life, I worked for Ritz-Carlton, and there was never any obstacles. They were all opportunities. So we were kind of trained to never say no to a customer. We always found a way around it, and it might not have been their yes, but it was a way around the obstacle. So everything's an opportunity. And I think that when we make things so hard that we don't enjoy the journey, and it just becomes so overwhelming. Instead of one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, we're looking at the end result that we want versus the steps that we're taking. And that's when people stop, and then they said that they've failed. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the saddest things to me, is when I have a client come to me and say, "Oh, this is just going to be another thing I fail at." And because they've
Right.
just stopped before they get there. There's a visual of, um, I guess you would call him a miner. He's digging a tunnel, and he's got his pickaxe, digging this tunnel. and he's this far away from the big diamond, and he stops and walks away. And I think that that's what we do, is we just get so
Yeah.
tired of the journey.
Well, again, if there's not joy involved, if there's not love involved, if there's not play involved, I mean, if anyone wants to make a shift in their life, they have to infuse that fun in it, right? There's enough serious stuff in life that we all have to deal with. And we all do have to deal with different elements all of the time, right? Again, the doing,
Right.
dealing with it. But when we're being, if there's not fun, if you're not having fun in conversations with your friends, if you're
Hmm.
not bringing an energy that elevates, that levels up that frequency, the conversations get dull or
Hmm.
the tasks get dull. I'm not inferring that we don't have things we have to do in life, but
Hmm.
constantly being in a way in which that being becomes playful and fun and joy. And believe me, and you talk about recently, over the last year, I have gone through more health crisis, if you want to call it that, than I've collectively done in my whole life. And I am in the most precarious, most people would consider serious and difficult spot in my life. But if I didn't look at it every single time of how can, and I have fallen into this at moments over the last year, but if I didn't look at it as what am I learning, what am I getting that I can bring out to people and how to inspire and how to overcome, the entire reinvented life is about overcoming what isn't serving one well
Right.
anymore. And how do we do that with levity, with joy, with simplicity? And oftentimes there are such simpler roads and paths to get to that you can have that fun.
Hmm.
Because if it's too serious, if it's too arduous, if it's too hard to explain, if it's too many steps, it's going to be very short lived.
Yes, you know, I'm going to bring up two points here. Number one, the blue zones are the areas of the longest living people on the planet. And
Right.
all of the things that they have in common is community and activity.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that in of itself tells you how important that is just to our own longevity. But also to our brain, and here I'm going to bring in the science part of it, is our brain is going to create barriers to any kind of change you want to do because it
Mm-hmm.
feels like if you are comfortable and happy, even if you have a disease, your brain doesn't want you to feel pain in trying something new. So it's going to create these barriers. You're going to start saying, oh, this won't work for me. It works for somebody else. It's not going to work for me. I'm different. I can't do this. So it's really conquering those limiting beliefs and just pushing those awful beliefs of yourself back and make a commitment to believe in yourself. Make a commitment. If you've tried every single health treatment or every single diet on the planet and you think you're going to fail because this is just one more, believe in yourself. Believe in the fact that even if you think that you failed through other tries, there's something that you've learned from it. And the fact that you are continuing on the path and trying to find new ways, and that's not just your health, that's in anything. You know, go back and look at the failures. I hate the word failure. I hate how we've made it so bad. But, there's so many stories of Edison and, all of these amazing inventors on how many times they failed before they actually had something that worked. And so if you can conjure up just a little bit more belief in yourself and that it's not failure isn't bad, failure is learning. It's like taking it as an opportunity, not an obstacle, then your mind is going to change. I use this analogy all the time. I had this boot camp instructor, and she had us doing these awful exercises. They were just so hard. They were called inchworms. If anybody knows what an inchworm is, they're just like detestable.
Yeah.
And we'd go up to the gym, and she'd have us do inchworms across the basketball court, and it was just awful. And we would grumble and we
Yeah.
would groan, and every single time she'd say, "Change your mind." And it's that little thing that is the most powerful tool that you have in your toolbox over anything else, is to change your mind. And
Yeah.
you and I talk about this all the time. I call you up and I have all this disbelief about myself, and it really truly is just such an amazing tool. And I know you've had to use it too with what you're going through right now. And
Yeah.
the mind is powerful, but through repetition and social or personal justice. You talk about that too. Personal justice is so
Yeah.
important.
Well, again, it's when we think of things in terms of conquering and fighting and needing to overcome and all of those things, those are very low vibrational
Mm-hmm.
concepts, right? So if we're constantly in this fight or flight and we're constantly, thinking something is so difficult, just the word conquering is a difficult notion in
Mm-hmm.
one's mind. And so, again, when you can add play to it, when you can have fun to it, if you think about hiking up a summit, right? If you think about words like reaching and journey and going and stepping, these are ways of being that make it more inviting,
Mm-hmm.
more attractive. But if you think of concepts like reaching and overcoming and challenges, those are very low vibrational places. And if one keeps themselves in a low vibrational place, it is very hard to be in the playful, having fun mode.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even talk with clients and share with clients, whether these be individuals or businesses, about what's difficult about it. I
Right.
share what an opportunity is, what a vision is. And it's aligning oneself with notions that are easier. The
Mm-hmm.
mind loves easy.
Yes.
No matter how bright you are, no matter how complex your life feels, no matter how much a situation seems difficult to overcome, if there's a simple solution, it is going to come more naturally. And I know we could talk about this all day,
Yeah, we
but
could.
re, reinventing is about simplifying it, how to have fun with something, how to adopt the new notion of you're doing something for yourself, not
Mhm.
something happening to you.
Too.
And I look at, over this past year, I have found myself right now, just so people understand that are hearing or listening to this, I'll just use one small example, not being able to have full mobility without a
Mm-hmm.
walker.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't wake up a year ago and say, oh, I'm going to need a walker for the rest of my life. I'm just using this as an example. So, having that said that, I also find this is one of the most joyful and peaceful times, because what I've created in that space of a year is the realization of I'm going to overcome that.
Right.
But what else in my life have I had an opportunity to think about and to make a shift with? So it's a great, I think, way to really end this conversation for the time being, is have our listeners, have our viewers start to, even if it just means jot something down,
Mm-hmm.
jot something down they want to make a shift with.
Right.
And as we wrap this up, we're here, we're accessible, you're easy to reach, I'm easy to reach. Love to have conversations with people
Yes.
about this.
Definitely. And just to wrap it up too, and we've gone over time a little bit, but again, it's like Pamela said, pick one thing. Don't overwhelm yourself. And change one thing, even if it's just your thinking. If
Yeah.
you can just change the way you think about something, not being worried about failing, not being worried about what people are going to think of you, just and know that at any point in time you can course correct. You can, make little tweaks to it, but make the commitment to believe in yourself. No matter what road you're on, if it's your health, if it's your finances, if it's your career, anything, just make the commitment to believe in yourself and know that there are people to support you. I can be reached at support at Hello, Your Health is Calling. Chanel, how can we reach you?
info@thereinventedlife.com. Drop me a line, drop me a thought. And what I would close with is this: the reason that it's so important that you can make the slightest shift with something is you've now provided your mind evidence that that can happen.
Yes,
And that's the
absolutely.
biggest part of it. It's not so much what it is, but that you have shown yourself first that you can adopt a new way of being. Thank you for having me on your show.
1,000%.
Hello,
Thank you for coming
calling
on.
is so.
We can
Oh,
probably have a show together. But thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for watching. This was a different kind of show. I wanted to talk about mindset. And remember, your health is not a hobby. It is important. If you're having symptoms, if you're having signs that maybe your health is not at optimal, then reach out and we can talk about it. We can we can figure it out. One of my best quotes is, everything is figure outable. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for tuning in to another empowering episode of Hello, Your Health is Calling with Sue Kostyk. Remember, your health journey is ongoing, and we're here to support you every step of the way. If you have any questions, insights, or stories to share, don't hesitate to reach out. You can connect with us on social media or call in live at 888-994-4995 Studio A. Together, we're transforming lives and embracing holistic well-being. Until next time, prioritize your health, and remember, your health is calling.